Good morning. We are back to the study of action and reaction. Last month, we studied a chapter called Collective Expiations, where we learn the consequences and the reasons for some of the collective expiations we go through. In that specific case was a plane accident that happened, and the victims, how they were assisted, why some were received special assistance, others couldn't, and so on and so forth. This book, in these last chapters, this is the next to last chapter, 19, each one is covering a different subject, so it's not really a continuation of the previous chapter. Now, this chapter is a very important one, very interesting one. Me and Elmo are going to try to share the teachings that are brought to us by instructor Druso. It's a lot of medical and spiritual information on the perispirit and the spiritual body and the connection between the two. So I'm going to ask Zoraida to read. I imagine that I need to increase the font, right, Zoraida,
yes,
for you?
Yes, please. Yes, thank you.
Like this is okay?
A little more, just a little bit.
There you go.
Okay, está bien. Okay, and we begin. Chapter 19.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, go ahead.
Sanctions and assistance. After tending to patients, Instructor Druso agreed to give us a few more minutes of his time for instructive conversation. He has spoken brilliantly about the problems of trials in the earthly experience. He had also warned us about the need for mental renewal regarding patterns for the good, pointing out the importance of study in order to assimilate higher knowledge and service to our neighbor in order to harvest goodwill and sympathy. Otherwise, all the pathways of evolution will be complicated and difficult to travel. As he was speaking, a singular sculpture was placed next to him, a remarkable, transparent figure reproducing the human body. It seemed so real that the only thing lacking to make it come alive was a spirit. We could see all the organs and elements of the physical vessel under the protection of the nervous and circulatory systems. The heart looked like a large bird in the nest of arteries entwined in the tree of the lungs. The liver like a vibrant condenser, the stomach and the intestines like testicle, digesters, and the kidneys like complex filtering equipment, eliciting profound admiration from us. However, our greatest interest focused on the endocrine system, where the glands look like sparkles of light. The pineal gland, the pituitary, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the thymus, the suprarenal, the pancreas, and the gonadal glands were perfectly characterized upon the living background of the perispiritual centers. These centers were linked to each other by very subtle nerve branches that were remarkably adjusted through the various plexuses, with each center emitting its own radiations, constituting a harmonious whole that compelled us to our contemplation. Noticing our surprise, the director said kindly, "Usually we call our patients' attention to the vehicle of our manifestation, the physical body, by showing them, as far as possible, the correspondence between our condition as a spirit and the form we use while on earth. It is crucial that we understand that all the evil we knowingly do somehow creates a lesion in our conscience, and that every such lesion causes a disturbance or malformation in the organism that exteriorizes our mode of being. On every plane of the universe, we are spirit and manifestation, thought and form. That is why medicine has to consider the patient as a psychosomatic whole if it really wants to invest itself in the art of healing." And touching the beautiful sculpture, he continued, "From the mind made clear by reason, seat of the higher principles that govern the individuality, radiate energies that ensure organic balance by means of rays that are still inaccessible to human examination. These rays vitalize the paraspiritual centers in whose webs the so-called endocrine glands are located. These glands, in turn, secrete substances that guarantee the stability of the cellular field. Obviously, in the incarnate individuals, all these elements materialize in the various hormones that act on all the organs of the physical body that through the blood. Those who already know about the tyrosian and the adrenaline energies produced by the thyroid and the supraparental glands with a visible influence on the circulatory system, nerves, and muscles also know that all the other glands of internal secretions produce substances that determine the health or illness, balance or imbalance of the incarnate individual. As is easy to see, in essence, all the temporary stages of the form we utilize in space and time does depend on our mental command. This is why justice, as a fundamental foundation of order and creation, invaluable starts within us whenever we default its principles. Evolving toward God can be compared to a divine journey. The good is a signal of free passage of the summits of the higher life, while evil represents a sentence of interdiction, forcing us to stop overs that are more difficult or less difficult to readjust.
Thanks, Sarayda. Paco is not here, but if he was, he would say in English, please. Right?
Explain.
It's a lot of very complex information that we have here. We'll try to. I ask for Elmo's help because there is a lot of information here that we need to go through. So, first thing, the Druso is the responsible for this transitory house of assistance that they are working on through this book, and he talks about one thing that we mention here time and time again, right? That Spiritism teaches us very strongly the importance of study in order to assimilate higher knowledge, the intellectual evolution, and service to our neighbor in order to harvest goodwill and sympathy, the moral evolution. Because if we don't work on our moral and intellectual evolution, all the pathways of evolution will be complicated and difficult to travel. We complicate our own path if we don't dedicate ourselves to these two wings of the evolution, the moral and intellectual. Knowing and understanding the intellectual is easier than the moral, because of the intellectual, you just have to learn more on top of what you already know. So it's to add. And the moral is harder because you have to eliminate imperfections, the challenges that we face on our daily lives. So reinforcement of what we already know and mentioned several times here in Spiritism. So this singular sculpture that was placed next to Druso, a transparent figure, it is not the first time we meet this figure if you remember, for those that remember, a long time ago when we studied the book Missionaries of the Light, in the chapter that Andre Luiz goes into the Institute of Reincarnation, first enters the Minister of Reincarnation in Ossular, Alexander, the mentor, presents him to some workers, and there is a big figure which is a sculpture of the human body, and Andre Luiz is fascinated by it and describes it to us. So we already seen this, and he's coming back to the same sculpture, of course, in a different place, but the same type of model for the spirits that are interested in learning and understanding the physical body, the spiritual body, and the very spirit, and the connection between those two. So he describes all the organs and elements of the sculpture, but he's more interested in the glands, the pineal, the pituitary, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the thymus, the suprarenal, and the pancreas and gonadal glands. And he sees that because they are the ones that are more strongly connected to the spiritual body. The physical body and the spiritual body are connected through thousands of filaments, but the most important ones are through the glands. And they are connected to each other by branches and are adjusted through the various plexus. So that's just a description of the glands where they see. And then Druso tells them the importance that they understand that the evil that we do creates a lesion in our conscience, and that every lesion causes a disturbance or malformation in the organism that exteriorizes our mode of being. Meaning, we, the spirit, the eternal spirit, through our mental activities that happens in the spirit, the thoughts, the actions originate from the spirit, not the perispirit or physical body, but it manifests in the perispirit, and each lesion causes a disturbance or malformation in the physical body, which is the organism that exteriorizes our mode of being. So we are spirit and manifestation, thought and form. Everything we think manifests in our physical body. And then he reinforces, that's why medicine still has a long way to go until it considers the patient as a psychosomatic whole to treat them, to fully treat them. We already see a lot of progress on that aspect of medicine, but still we are far from finding it. Remember, this book was written in the 1950s, and from there to now, medicine has evolved a lot. Elmo can talk a little bit about it, but we still have a long way to go. So from the mind radiates the energy that ensures organic balance. The rays vitalize the perispiritual centers, and the glands secrete substances that guarantee the stability of the cellular field. Everything originates in the mind to start it. So incarnate individuals, all these elements materialize in the various hormones that act in all the organs of the physical body through the blood. So then he talks a little bit by the adrenaline, the tyrosine, that the energies that are produced by the thyroid and suprarenal glands. Nowadays, we know a lot more about that. And also the other glands that produce the substances that determine health or illness, balance or imbalance of the incarnate individual. So, and he concludes saying that justice as a fundamental foundation of order and creation starts within us whenever we defraud its principle. So God's law is printed in our conscience. Every time we go against the natural law, we create the necessity of divine justice towards ourselves. So evolving towards God can be compared to a divine journey. The good is a sign of free passage to the higher life, while evil prevents us to move forward and force us to stopovers that are more or less difficult, depending to the actions, to readjust. A lot of information here. Elmo, please help me here on anything that I missed. You're on mute, Elmo.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I start with the knowledge over here, the importance of studies. I think it's so important that the instructor started that in the very first paragraph, because the question that one would have, and I do have, is why do I need to know all those details of our understanding of our progress? Is not enough, in accordance with the teachings of Jesus, to love one another, to love God with all our heart, all our mind, all our strength and everything. It's not enough to liberate ourselves from pride and selfishness, to conquer the high spheres of existence. And the truth is, no, it's not enough. It is essential. It is perhaps the most important part. It is absolutely the reason why Spiritism was brought to us by the higher spirits. But with all the instructions, the guidance, the stimulation for us to conquer those moral values, they also bring to us the guidelines for intellectual progress as well, because we need to progress on both sides, right? Moral and intellectual. When Jesus says that to whom much was given, more will be given, maybe misinterpreted, but here Drusus explained that in order for us to be able to receive more from the spirits, we have to have a bag, right? If I'm going to give you, I don't know, 200 gold coins, but in your pocket, by your pack can only carry 15, you are missing out in a bunch of golden coins. You have to have a container bag that is able to receive 200 coins. Otherwise, you only gonna get the 15. That's what you can have. So the more we educate ourselves, the greater we expand our potential to receive more. And there is a symbiotic relationship between our moral and intellectual progress. Right? One kind of depend of the other to be progressing justly with both wings at the same side, so you can fly. That is the importance of the studies, of educating ourselves, of making ourselves more receptive to more from the spirits on both sides, the intellectual and the moral. So the intellectual is also important. Of course, the primordial, it is the moral. It is for us to be able to follow the teachings, the moral teachings of Jesus. But in order to conquer that with reasoning, we have to apply intellectual ability as well. So all this that we learn here is also important. We're not going to discard it, and I think it's brilliant that Drusos and Andre Luiz placed that statement right in the beginning, letting us know, what we're passing to you guys over here is not just little talk. This is important. And in the very beginning of the chapter, right? And the more we know, the more you open doors to learn more and more and more and more. So, and Russo's stuff here telling us something very important in relationship of the consequences of our act, our thoughts, how it affects the body. When it says it is crucial that we understand that all the evil we knowingly do somehow creates a lesion in our conscience, and that every lesion causes disturbance or malfunction the organism that exteriorizes it. The word knowingly here is very important. João and I, in the studies of Thursday in the Spirit's book, we are bringing back two very important words in Spiritism. It's intention and knowledge. The more you know, the more responsible you are. And I'll go back to the very first paragraph again, the necessity to learn to develop our knowledge, but with that comes responsibility as well. Now, if you have a very simple instrument of transportation or a bicycle, it's a very simple instrument of transportation. If there is any problem, it's 2 or 3 things that may be wrong. It's relatively easy to repair. If you drive a modern car, it is a much more complex machine. It has so many things that can go wrong that really requires someone who really understands of that machine to fix it. A bicycle, anyone who rides can fix itself, him or herself. Because now the machine of a modern automobile is more complex, the possibility of things going wrong is also bigger because there's a lot of more things in that engine. If you drive an airplane, it's much more complex. There's a lot of more things that can go wrong. So the more you know, the more you expand your potentials, also there is more responsibility, and the probability of things going wrong is also greater, right? So there is greater responsibility with knowledge. So it's crucial that the evil that we do knowingly, now that you know, you are more responsible. Now that you know, those things that you do, they call it evil behavior, have a much greater probability, I'm not going to say for sure that's always going to happen, but have a much greater probability of lesioning your physical instrument because your conscience will accuse. Your conscience will accuse because you already know it. For someone who is unknown, who doesn't know, the probability of the conscience accuse it is a little bit lesser. Now, you can't pretend that you don't know when you don't know. When you already know, it's impossible. And you can't neglect the opportunities of learning to avoid responsibility. That is even worse. So in our progress, we need to get to know, to learn things. And can I share now?
Sorry?
Can I share now?
Yes.
Yeah, I cannot hear. Okay, I'm going to share a picture. Can you guys see this? Can everybody see this image?
Yes, I
Yes.
see it.
Okay. Okay. So Druso is speaking about here of the endocrine system, the glands in our body, the glands that produces hormones. And he creates an association of those glands with energies that derives from the mind, right? And energies that derives from the spiritual dimension. So this picture over here shows the endocrine system, the system of the glands in the physical body, and what are the correspondent centers of energies, also called chakras. In the Sanskrit, that means circle or rod, because most of them has this circular shape according to what they understand. Here we have 7 of them, okay? Is it 7? No, there are books that talks about 10, there are books that talk about 12. Andre Luiz says there's many more. I'm presenting here what the 7 more common, perhaps the bigger ones. And you can understand those centers of energies as like, what is the word? Airport hubs, when you there are airports that receive a lot of big planes, and then they distribute passengers to go to other cities through small airports. Like if you want to go to, I don't know what, a small city in somewhere in Atlanta, you might have to go in Georgia, you might go to Atlanta, which is a airport hub, and then you distribute. Then you have Atlanta, Houston, Chicago. There are the hubs that distribute things to make it easier distribution of our plans throughout the country, right? The same thing you could imagine with those centers of energies. Those are the big powerhouses, one bigger than others, but you're not going to go through that now. But those are the big ones that receive or send energies, and those energies are distributed to other different centers of energy, smallest one, to address the entire physical body, the same way that those airport hubs distribute airplanes to smaller airports to address the necessity of the transportation throughout the whole country. Does it make sense? And for us in spiritualism, we understand the pineal gland is the major hub, is the one that makes the direct contact with the spiritual world. Is the most important, is the one that is responsible for the management of all the other ones. Our physical science does not still understand the value of the pineal gland yet. The pineal gland for us is, until very recently, was believed that the pineal gland would stop functioning after puberty, and then would only function it associated with sleep because it produces melatonin. Now we understand that it does exercise a lot of more functions, but we do not understand yet in our science. Okay. And the pineal gland being the most important that directors receive everything from the spirituality is associated with the crown chakra or center of energy. If I say the word chakra, just because that's what I'm reading over here, but in spiritualism, we call centers of energies, which is the same thing as a chakra. Okay, but the chakra is a word of the Sanskrit. And if you're following down, and following down is significant because it goes from more spiritualized to more materialized, and we can see that over here. Then we have the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, which is an extremely important gland that produces major, absolutely necessary hormones, okay? And it's together with the hypothalamus that it's not here. The two of them are the two that stimulate production or send signals to stop the production of hormones of most of the glands. Okay, so it's like the central command, so to say, besides producing a lot of hormones. I'm not going to go for each one of them because it's not so significant, right? It's not a physiology class over here. Just to let you guys know that there is this descending importance of all those systems. Not that one is less important than the other, because without one of them, we would not survive. But in terms of sending the command of functioning of the other glands. So the pituitary would be together with the pineal gland, being the major glands, and being the major glands, they would be associated with the major center of energy, which is the crown chakra is over here. Okay. After that, we come here to what we call the frontal chakra. In Sanskrit, it would be the third eye, right? That also associates with the pineal gland and the hypothalamus. The two of them works in synergy, in being commanding the other glands. In spiritualism, you also understand that this so-called third eye has this name third eye that derives because it's extremely associated with mediumship as well. Is a gland. It is a center of energy that is very much related with mediumship, and i.e., by default, those glands, the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, posterior and anterior, would be very much associated with mediumship. And when Kardec tells it is an organic factor associated with mediumship, he's talking about those command centers in the brain, those glands. Okay. If we follow going down, you can see descending of command. We come to what they call the throat chakra or center of energy, that we call most commonly the laryngeal, because the larynx is over here. The larynx is associated with the respiratory senses, right? Is the upper airway, is associated with speech. Okay, over here they say truth. No, they're associated with truth. Speech, okay, is associated with emotions, very much associated with emotions. Okay. Going down, we come to the cardiac, or the heart. The heart's located over here. We're associated with that. I'm sorry, you're going back up. The thyroid gland is a major gland. The thyroid is a very important gland that is associated with the throat as well. It's right at the throat, so to say, that we have our thyroid and the parathyroid. There's two little being look like organs in the top and in the bottom of the thyroid gland, two on each side, here. The parathyroid also associated with emotions, but associated with the regulation of minerals in the body, especially calcium. Put calcium in the bone, make your bones hard and strong. Take calcium off the bone, that makes your bones brittle and weak, right? Also relates with the heart. Again, emotions, because the heart is very dependent on calcium. The myosin, the muscle of the heart, is very dependent on calcium. Okay, and when you go down now, you have the center, the heart, and the heart is done with sentiment. And I differentiate emotions from sentiment, right? The heart deals with the sentiments: love, hate, resentment, those kinds of things. Okay, a vital organ, as we know, that deserves its own major center of energy that is pretty much limited to that. And of course, it's circulation, right? The blood circulation, because everything starts here in the heart and circulates and has blood vessels circulating throughout the body. Okay. If you go down a little further, then you get what we call the gastric center, now the solar plexus, that deals with the digestive system, that liver, pancreas, stomach. The pancreas is a huge gland, produces insulin, produces all the enzymes responsible for digestion. Associated with the solar plexus, we have something that's not here. I like to mention because we paid a lot of attention to it. Okay, that is the splenic, associated with the spleen. The spleen is somewhat located around here. It's not showing here. Okay, the spleen is important because it deals with the immune system. The chakra is responsible for the immune system and also blood circulation, with the blood itself, not blood circulation, with the blood itself. So it's a very important chakra that is not mentioned over here. And again, I have to mention some of those chakras is interpreted in different ways. Like over here, the sacral is showing that adrenal gland associated with the sacral. In our studies in medicine, in spiritualism, we associate adrenal glands more with the splenic as well. And keep in mind that all are related to one another. One is absolutely dependent on one another. So even though we have those differentiations, they have conjoint responsibility, so to say, with the functioning of the body. Okay, and if we go a little bit down further, we have the sacral together with the root, which we call the genetic. In spiritualism, most books will call this root and put them together, the genetic, that deals with reproduction, sexual function, sexual manifestation, the manifestation that exposes the manifestation that comes from up higher, right? So we see over here that there is this descending order of more spiritualized to more physical. When you come to the gastric, the solar plexus, the things are more really dealt with organic material function, digestion, reproduction, sexuality, but they all correlated. If you use the example of the sexuality over here, and this true over here, a more moralized person will bring those energies from here, sublimize them with the values of the heart, and then sex becomes something more spiritualized, not only a carnal thing. So when it's say the sex is sacred, it is, like everything is sacred, but it's how we are able to bring those energies, more materialized energies. This gonads and the root ground over here is that they understand that they may receive the kundalinic energy that comes from the ground, from earth. So such a vivid, materialized kind of energy, so to say, that is even called grounding over here, root. They receive energies from Mother Earth. The more moralized individual is able to bring those energies, bring above the belt, so to say, and spiritualize those energies in a sense with the energies of the heart. And then the sexual activity is no longer just a physical thing, like any animal thing to reproduce or have an orgasm, but an exchange of energies of love that is sublimized in the heart over here. So these are very important concepts for us to keep in mind. And always keep in mind that this is a picture of very reduced of what we understand. Some will give 10 different chakras being the major ones. And we understand that beyond the major, there are minus centers of energy distributed throughout the whole body. Once Drusa tells us over here, those hormones are extremely important and powerful. They do indeed are responsible for the management of the functions of the body. Start from the pineal, I cannot say because our science does not know yet, but we understand from Andre Luiz that is the major gland that send the commands for the whole other glands. So if they're not producing much, if the pineal is not producing much in terms of hormones that we know so far, except the melatonin, we know in spiritism that is the command sender that sends all the signals, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. Okay, in association with that, the pituitary or with the hypothalamus is, I think it's very important to put them together because our hypothalamus is extremely important as well. They secrete vital hormones, and hormones are those light things that if you could put, I don't know, a glass full of hormone somewhere, you probably create an atomic bomb. So powerful those things are. Because they are measured with microscopic units, nanogram. And if the 0.5 nanograms above or below the normal, it creates tremendous disasters in the body. It's so powerful they are, extremely powerful. Right. So as an example, the pituitary sends command to the thyroid gland over here to stop or producing or to produce more the thyroid hormones. The thyroid hormones are responsible for the metabolism. If you have a little bit more of what you should have or considered normal, the metabolic system goes extremely fast. So you're going to have your heart rate that should be normal between 80 and 100. Most of us going to be in the mid 80s. Obviously 60 and 100. And most of us would have heart rate around 80. If you have a little bit more of the normal amount of thyroid in our system, your heart going to be like 150, 180. And if you have a good muscle heart, that heart going to go into exhaustion and say bye-bye, right? So how important those things are, right? The parathyroid, again, you mineralize and demineralize the bonds. You have to have strong bonds, right? Like a pregnant woman, if it doesn't take enough calcium, why the prenatal care is so important, and if prenatal woman takes calcium, because if the baby needs bone or needs calcium for the bone, if the mama is not taking the right amount of calcium, the parathyroid gland is going to say, no problem. I take all the bone from the calcium of the mother and I give to the baby. And then the woman still have osteoporosis. That's one of the reasons osteoporosis is more common in a woman than a man. The body has a system of removing calcium from the bones. The baby needs it. The baby takes priority of the mom during pregnancy. That's why, again, prenatal care is so important. Those things happen. Okay. Now, the important thing is the mind, the power of the mind. So from the mind, made clear by reason, seat of higher principle that governed individuality. So Druso is given a concept, not a definition of mind. What is mind? But he's going to want a concept of what mind, how can we see mind, being the seat of higher principles that governs the individuality. So only the mind, when we can see here how easy it is to get involved or acquire psychosomatic problems, because the mind generates energies. If the mind is misguided, those energies will be misguided, and those energies will affect those centers of energies. If my mind is misguided towards sexuality, I will definitely affect this. That may create an obstruction which the energies from the lower part of the body, even the one that comes from the ground, will not be able to go up and be somewhat spiritualized, sublimized, and stays at the level of the animalia. So that you will start to have sexual desires that it's nothing to do with the spirit itself, but it's purely animalistic. The same equivalent of the sexual desire of a snake, right? And since we are a lot more evolved than a snake, we create problems. And you may end up with problems associated with the organs associated with those centers of energies. Okay? And that goes for the whole body. Okay, and Russo goes many examples here. Now, keep in mind, those are examples. The necessity of not in any way trying to be judgmental, but based on what we read here, reach conclusions. Oh, I'm suffering for this, or my friend is suffering for that. That is the cause. Now we don't know. And Russo's always going to remind us that here in this chapter as well. Just one more thing, Ron, before I go into the hormones. One of the functions of the hormones is to maintain, or the function is to maintain what's called hemostasis. And the word hemostasis equals equilibrium. Think of equilibrium. Things must be in equilibrium. If your system, your organs, the production of things are in equilibrium, you are healthy. When this equilibrium broke, you create diseases. Okay, that's why I'm always mention that in our system there is a range of normal. There's a range of normal for everything. I like to believe there's a range of normal for the amount of red cells in circulation in our blood. If you go below that, it's not good. You're anemic. If you go above that, it's not good. The blood gets too thick, too viscous, and it's very dangerous as well. The sodium, the amount of sodium in our body, it has a range that goes from, I don't know, 135 to 140. Okay, if you stay in that range, you are good. You are in stasis. If it goes too high, it's very dangerous. If it goes too low, it's even more dangerous because it breaks the equilibrium, the amount of sodium and potassium that goes in and out of the cells of each cells of the body goes out of adjustment. It becomes a very problematic situation that is no need to go into it. So the harmony, the stasis is such that, as an example here, let's say that your body is in stasis, homeostasis is total equilibrium. You drink a liter of water, you should be close to a liter of water, a little bit more because metabolism produces water. Is 1:1 because you are in equilibrium, you are so leveled already that what comes out, what comes in will come out. Now, if you are, let's say, dehydrated, you are out of equilibrium already, you created dehydration, you drink a little of water and you pee nothing because the body needs that water. The body is seeking to reach equilibrium, to be in hemostasis, so it's going to hold on to that water. If you have an excess of water and you drink a liter, you're going to drink more than a liter because the body wants to stay balanced level. And what those hormones does is maintain that equilibrium, maintain that adjustment that gives us health. When with our mind, we create this adjustment with each one of those centers of energies, that will create problems with the production of those hormones, and then have problems with equilibrium. We disadjust the thing. It's like having a clock that no longer can give the right time. It's always a few minutes late, a few minutes fast. One of the hands is going too fast because there is a problem internal with the mechanism functioning of the clock. And the mechanism that maintain that clock is complex. It's come from both our mind and our conscience. The conscience leads to the mind, and from the mind to the rest of the body. Okay? I think it's a very important thing. And when we read more, we go around and I'll try to complement. Any questions here? You
go back to the book.
Okay, you took it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else here to comment on this first part? I don't think so, right? I think you you covered everything. Okay. Raida, can you continue?
Yes. Taking advantage of a short pause, Eladio remarked, the educational work performed in the lower zones regarding reincarnation is really quite remarkable. Yes, it is, replied the instructor. It is important to inform all our brothers and sisters who are about to return to their to the human realm that the physical body, with all the responsibilities that pertain to it, must be considered as a true award of divine goodness and must be prized as such. Here in the purgatorial realms, there are variable multitudes and discarnate spirits that have left the earth in deplorable hallucinatory states after having wasted the benefits of human life. Due to the misfortunate of their own ignorance, many were not able to adjust to any sort of religious concept, and millions of others, far removed from the faith they were born into and the commitments they accepted before God, consciously gave in to mental cruelty, carving out ruin and bitterness for themselves. The evil they inflicted on others was inevitable. The evil they brought upon their own heads. As a consequence, as soon as they were free of dense matter, they arrived here consumed by remorse and repentance, suffering terrible frustrations. Many a time they linger for a longer or shorter period in expiatorial caves, where, imprisoned by former enemies or all conspirators in crime, they undergo heart-trending changes in their centers of force, expressed in the mind as disastrous instability. After they are assisted in our shelter of love, they recover little by little, rectifying reincarnation, that is, being interned in the flesh in a painful condition, appears as the unavoidable alternative. They will have to reincarnate and confront with tremendous obstacles caused by the perispiritual disharmony, what they themselves have created. Even so, before returning to the cradle, they must improve their credit as much possible. Hence the reason why institutions like ours work in various areas of the infernal regions, which in the old theology are the equivalent of hell. But what exists, in fact, is the immense umbra situated between heaven and earth, a dolorous region of darkness created and cultivated by the generally rebellious and indolent, insane, and sick human mind. The discarnates who wake up slowly to the responsibilities of life, bravely facing the need to return to a difficult rebirth, begin to work tirelessly here to surmount terrible obstacles, overcoming all kinds of storms in order to acquire the merits they neglected during their stay in the body, so as to implant in their spirit the moral qualities they will need in order to endure new and blessed struggles on the material plane. His eyes shining with understanding and caring like a noble and good teacher who wants his students to progress, the instructor made a long pause and asked us, "Do you understand?" Yes, yes, we answered at the same time, interested in learning more.
Thanks, Brida. So here, Druso is going to mention the place where the institution mention of peace, Mansão Paz, is in the lower zones. And he reinforces the concept that the educational work performed in the lower zones regarding reincarnation is really quite remarkable. We have seen in this book the work being done in mention of peace to work on the recovery of the spirits that are taken to inside the institution for the work of recovering, readjustment, and preparation for a new incarnation, a reincarnation. Andre Luiz and Hilario went through two different places with Silas. We learned about Silas' own history. He was one that was rescued by mention of peace and worked on himself to evolve and grow. And now he works directly with the director of the house in the providing assistance to those in need. So the importance of the institution in the work of recovering and preparing spirits for new incarnations is very relevant, and that's what he's saying here about the educational work performed in institutions like this one in the lower zones. And then he talks about the multitude of discarnate spirits that left Earth in deplorable state and go to the umbral that he mentions here, the lower zones, which is a place in the spiritual world that is full of spirits that are not adjusted to themselves. So we read about with Andre Luiz in the beginning of the collection in Ossular that he spent some time in the lower zones, in the umbral, where he was unaware of where he was, what was happening to him. He was accused of being a suicide and all those things. So we have seen many times through many books, Andre Luiz passage through the lower zones. In the Messengers, he spends 2/3 of the book going through the lower zones to reach Earth. In Workers of Life Eternal, he spends in an institution similar to this one, in the Transitory House of Assistance, Fabiano de Cristo, if I'm not mistaken. And we see Sister Zenobia going to work in the lower zones to rescue spirits, to assist spirits. So the importance of these places for us here incarnated on Earth at our stage of evolution is to understand the place where we may end up if we don't combine moral evolution with intellectual knowledge. Because if you have an understanding of life in the spiritual world and you have made the moral transformation necessary according to our level of evolution, again, we're not here trying to become saints because that's not possible. But if we made enough moral evolvement, and we combine that with the knowledge and understanding of the spiritual world, we are not going to find ourselves in these places, because the moment we discarnate and we regain our understanding and conscience, we are going to find ourselves in places where we can be assisted immediately. We are not going to go to the ER. We are already going to a house of assistance in the spiritual world that we are prepared that we already understand that we can continue our journey. So here, Druso explains that many spirits that are found in this place, due to the misfortune of their own ignorance, and again, ignorance here is knowledge and moral. Many were not able to adjust to any sort of religious concept. Again, the importance of truly having a religious background and accepting and understanding it, any religious background, as long as it's in a positive way, not with fanaticism, not with discrimination, but truly reconnecting or connecting with God and the superior spirits. So he mentions here that millions removed from the faith they were born into, so they miss the opportunity and the commitments they accept before God. Then they act with cruelty, and then they ruin themselves. They cause all the harm to themselves. So the evil they inflict on others, they inevitably bring back to themselves. So when they are free from dense matter, when they discarnate, they arrive in these places, many of them consumed by remorse and repentance, frustrated, and it takes some time for them to understand what's going on with them. So they linger for a longer or shorter period of times in expiatory caves, like Andre Luiz was for some time. And then they become victims of former enemies, old co-conspirators, and they undergo changes in the centers of force, which Elmo just covers so well, expressing the mind with instability. So rectifying reincarnation, a new opportunity, being unable to get a new opportunity in the flesh, sometimes in painful condition, is an unavoidable alternative, is the only way out of the mess they created for themselves. So then he goes to explain that, but before they return to a new incarnation, they must improve as much as possible. They must acquire some knowledge, some understanding, some degree of responsibility, so they can be more prepared to the new incarnation. Otherwise, they are thrown in the new reincarnation and they're not going to make the same mistakes they made already. So they are going to repeat the mistakes, which is what happens to many of us. We come back and we repeat the same mistakes and we aggravate our condition and our responsibility. So he compares the umbral, which is the region situated between heaven and earth, in terms of what theology explains, the equivalent of hell, which is, again, hell is a state of mind, and what we create for ourselves, place ourselves in this region, in this immense umbral, right? That is a region of darkness cultivated by spirits that are rebellious and indolent, okay? So lazy spirits, insane and sick. So they have to wake up slowly to the responsibilities of life and then face the necessity of a difficult rebirth. And some of them will begin to work there tirelessly to overcome the obstacles, learning, and so they are able to implant in their spirit the moral qualities they will need in order to endure new and blessed struggles on the material plane. Meaning, you can learn, you can improve, you can progress in the spiritual world, you can prepare yourself, so you can gain the strength and the tools that you need, the necessary tools that you need for a new reincarnation, that when you come with all these tools ready. Now, if you are going to make good use of these tools, is a different story, and many of us fail in utilizing the necessary tools. But most of us bring already these tools to face the challenges in the new reincarnation. Okay? Anything here, Elmo?
Oh, yeah, this is a comment, a complement what you already said. The knowledge that Druce provides to us now here, that in the spiritual world, in the lower zones, amongst suffering spirits, when they are ready to reincarnate, they received all the necessary guidance and instruction. They receive all the reasons for why you're going to go back with a physical body who will have this or that problem, so the potential to develop this or that problem. We're going to explain everything to you guys, and the goal is to educate. We are concerned with the eternal spirit. We don't want to see any suffering, but if necessary, we allow it to go to that suffering to improve the eternal spirit. Mom and daddy, following guidance from science, following guidance from the pediatric doctors who know more than mom and daddy about children's pathology, will take the kid, the 5, 6 years old, whatever age that is, to get a needle. The kid does not understand, will be upset because mommy and dad is on the side of the doctor who will make me suffer, getting a needle in my arm or in my butt. But mom and dad will try to say, oh, it's important to prevent this, to avoid biggest problems, as much as the kid is able to understand. The same thing with us here. I think it's extremely important, and when the spirits tell us that here, it is important to inform all of our brothers and sisters who are about to return to the human realm that the physical body, which all the responsibilities that pertains to it, must be considered as the true award of divine goodness and must be prized as such. And just as a complement, when it says here must be considered as true award of divine goodness and must be prized as such, goes up to something that we are discussing right now in the Spirit's book with suicide. Why is suicide so wrong? This sentences here tells us everything. This is a wonderful instrument that must be considered as a prize, as a divine gift from God, with all its defects. And why is that? Because now all these adjustments that created in my perispiritual, that is now permanent. And again, this is important because let's say, if I drink and one day, I get drunk and the next day I have a bad hangover, I have diarrhea, and now it happens once, twice a year, so to say. It's one thing. But it's not enough to cause a permanent damage in my liver. The liver will recover, the pancreas will recover, you function normal. But if I persist and drink, I don't know, a pint of vodka or 12 beers every single day, now it's a persistent problem. That's something that will create a permanent damage in those organs. And by doing that, I will affect the centers of energy associated with those organs. And those centers of energies will be permanently defected and permanently here. Again, it's for that reincarnation. Once you come and receive the next physical body, and they will explain it to you right in the knowledge zone, or because you took excess of alcohol, you have been warned quite a few times. Remember all those headaches, all the diarrheas that you have, that the body let you know that you need to make some corrections, and you refuse to make those corrections. You create that permanent problem. Now you have this disease that you create for yourselves, to yourself, that is called alcoholism. Okay, but you're going now with a deficit in this part of the body, the liver, the pancreas, the stomach, regardless of it is on the gastric center or the solar plexus that you just saw over there, to make the necessary correction. If you make the necessary correction, you avoid things that you must avoid. We're going to give you a list of things that you should avoid. If you avoid those things, you're going to purify your perispirit. You're going to clean up that part of your perispirit. And when the physical body dies, it will take with it all the diseases associated with your disadjustment on the previous incarnation, and you go back to the spiritual world free of that disease. But you must do your work. And yes, it's going to be even more difficult than the last time because now it's a compiled problem. But you receive all the necessary education. Okay. And then it talks about remorse and repentance. Now we can only imagine, it's not hard to understand here now. Once you incarnate, we get, a limited remembrance of the things that you were informed, although you will have all the necessary guidance and remindings of the things that you need to do throughout existence, you might neglect everything. And you continue to indulge in excess of alcohol, okay? That liver, that the pancreas that is already compromised. And now you're going to die at an earlier age of an alcohol-associated disease. Go back to the spiritual plane. Is exposed to all the teachings that you received prior to the incarnation, and your spiritual guide is going to tell you, remember, when you have that powwow, you have that talk, and the things that you need to avoid. And remember how many times, even in dreams, we brought you back here to remind you of those things. Remember that every time that we gave you that, or you gave to yourself, and we endorsed the pain in your right part of your stomach, and you continue to neglect it, can we measure the amount of remorse that we might feel? Say, oh my God, they warned me, they prepared me for this, they gave me signs throughout my reincarnation, and I ignored everything. You have to deal with tremendous amount of remorse and repentance. So much so that there is an spiritist, Euripides Bassanufo, that he was given the opportunity to open a hospital in the spiritual plane to deal with that. And especially, he says, spiritists. When we go back over there and because we can't claim ignorance, we're being exposed to all these that are really right now, the amount of remorse, repentance is extremely painful to the spirit. This is one of the worst pangs, is the guilty feeling of not doing something that you know very, very well that you could have done easily if you had a little bit of goodwill. This is extremely important, the remorse and repentance, especially for those, as you go back again, who have some knowledge. The more you know, the more you are responsible for.
It's if you remember, there is this story of Euripides Barçanufo when he had a dream / out of body experience that he was in the presence of Jesus, right? He saw Jesus crying, and he gets close to Jesus and he asks why he's crying, and he says, "Are you crying for the dictators, for those that for those that cause so much pain and hurt, and the Genghis Khans, the dictators, the all those that cause the Christians to be sacrificed, and so on and so forth." And in the end, Jesus says, "No, I'm crying for all those that knew the gospel and did not practice it." And that's when he woke up and decided to create this hospital that Elmo mentioned. Was after this dream.
Mm-hmm.
So, Elmo, I'm thinking here that we're not going to be able to finish this chapter. There is so much more to it. We went half of it in 1 hour and 50 minutes. So I think we should leave it for next month. We are going to continue this next month because it's too much. And I don't want to rush to the end of it because there is so much more good information, good learning that we can take from this. So any questions, additional questions, comments, Elmo, or anyone else?
Where is stop again?
We're stopping here, learning more.
Oh, yes, okay.
Because you see, the second part, it talks about so much things that I mentioned here that we're not going to be able to finish today. And we're going to have to rush through it. I don't think it's worth. I think it's worth leaving it to continue next month.
Okay, so for August starting, this is true? Okay.
For all of us, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The word sanction. How do you do with the other sanction next month then?
Sorry?
When you want the arrangement of sanctions.
Sanctions, yes.
That's for next month.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, we have this by the end, the different types of pain, right? The assistance pain, the expiation pain, the evolution pain. There's so much to talk about that we really cannot do it in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to ask If anyone else has any other questions, otherwise I'll ask Carol to do our final prayer. Next Sunday, we are going to study the Gospel according to Spiritism. Okay? Carol.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you so much, Elmo, for a great presentation. Very, very, very informative, and thank you so much. Thank you also, Sarita, for reading for us today and for all who are here and participating. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together as brothers and sisters for our studies of the book Action and Reaction, Chapter 19, Sanctions and Assistance. Studying and service to others increases the intellectual and moral aspects of our lives. We have a spirit, perispirit, and body, which are connected in the endocrine systems within the physical body, which distribute the secretions of the glands and can determine our health or our illness. Intention and knowledge are important and also increases our responsibility as we acquire more awareness. The centers of energy or chakras connect the elements, energy, the body, the mind, and the spirit. The pineal and pituitary glands are associated with mediumship. The major and minor chakras connect with the physical organs and glands to keep the body functions in equilibrium and in balance. In the lower zones, the work, the recovery, and the remorse helps prepare spirits for reincarnation, and it is a place of noble endeavor. This endeavor includes assistance and relearning. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all of our participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And may we remind ourselves now to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.